The story begins with a doctor urgently calling for help, telling the team to put the patient on a ventilator. At the same time, Yan struggled to breathe, his chest rising and falling as his heart beat wildly, almost giving out. Yan had spent 20 years as a hard-working industrial mechanical designer, and now he was close to losing it all. His hard work brought him nothing but disappointment and deep loneliness. His constant push had finally taken a toll on him, breaking his mental health and leaving him in this dire situation. From the start, Yan's life was filled with sadness. A car crash took his parents, leaving him to face the world alone. Even with these struggles, Yan kept going, hoping that one day life would reward his efforts and call him successful. But that day never came. After finishing school, he got a job that paid just enough to survive for 20 years. His personal life was just as lonely. He lived by himself, never having the chance to hold anyone's hand. And now, it seemed his lonely journey was ending. "Yan, can you hear me?" His closest friend's voice cut through the chaos, filled with worry as they tried to bring him back. Yet, Yan wondered if his life had any worth. Was there any point to living like this? As he felt more and more tired, he thought, maybe I'll just take a little nap. When Yan opened his eyes, the place around him was completely new. He was in a room filled with luxury, with silk curtains and sparkling crystal lights. The richness of the room scared him for a moment, thinking he might have used up all his money on a fancy hospital room. Then, a message appeared, "Welcome to the magical continent of Elda." The truth hit him hard. Could this be one of those stories where someone ends up in another world? In this strange new place, Yan realized he was now called Ren. Confused, he tried to understand what happened, but answers were hard to find. A week passed in this magical world. Ren lived a dreamlike life, with servants at his service all the time. Slowly, he understood what had happened. He had died and somehow been reborn as Ren Edgar, the third son of the Duke of the Allen Edgar family. Ren had an older sister and brother who always looked out for him. "Little brother, eat this. You're growing and shouldn't go hungry," his sister said, laying out a big meal for him. His brother gave him a shiny vial, saying, "This is magic water. It boosts magical power, and I paid a lot for it." Even his mother showed her care, giving him a new shirt she made and asking him to try it on. As the youngest and most spoiled in the family, Ren enjoyed a life of great comfort. But even as he got used to this luxury, he felt out of place, wondering why he deserved such kindness. To calm his thoughts, he told himself that maybe this was a reward for the tough life he had before. Elda was an amazing world, where magic ran everything. The Koriel Empire, the biggest human nation on the continent, was home to many races, like elves and dwarves. The Edgar family was powerful, ruling over a large area of 300,000 square kilometers. Their land had rich fields, a grand castle, and more than 1 million people. As a noble, Ren had all he could wish for, from fancy clothes to a personal maid. Yet, when he looked in the mirror, he saw Yan's face, a constant reminder of his past life. One day, Ren's thoughts were interrupted by Leia, a cheerful maid, who told him his father wanted to see him. She took him to the study where his father, Aldian, was going through reports from their lands. Ren greeted him with the respect of a noble, waiting for his father to speak. Aldian looked at his son seriously and asked, "Do you know why I called for you?" The importance of the moment made Ren nervous, but he quietly replied, "No, I don't, father." The Duke relaxed a bit and said, "Ren, you're old enough to manage your own land. Have you thought about where you'd like it to be?" Ren was taken aback. His surprise turned into confusion as he asked about getting land. Aldian sighed at his son's innocence, explaining that nobles his age usually start managing a territory. He got up and pointed at a big map on the wall. "The land you'll take care of is in the northwest. It's pretty safe, but they often have trouble with food because there aren't enough mages." His father's voice grew more serious as he went on. "While our land is stable now, the future of the Koriel Empire is shaky." Ren quietly agreed. The royal family was losing power, and the political system was falling apart, leaving the empire divided. Lords were always in conflict, with secret rivalries and schemes making everything more dangerous and complicated. Since coming to this new life, Ren felt a kind of care and love he never had before. This love made him want to protect those who truly cared for him. Seeing Ren lost in thought, Aldian worried that he was giving his son too much responsibility. To ease the tension, he reminded Ren that he wasn't alone. Ren had his older brother, sister, and father to help him. But Ren seemed to have an idea. He looked at his father with newfound determination. Seriously, he asked if fixing the food supply problem would make their land safer. Aldian smiled at Ren's eagerness but thought his approach was too simple. He explained that solving the food issue needed careful planning and slow, steady action. But Ren wasn't being simplistic. He was thinking of all the knowledge from past human advancements. Confidently, he declared he would tackle the food crisis. Ren's journey to his new land began. Island City, the territory given to him, was full of potential but also challenges. To the north, it bordered Grand Duke Ryan's land, an enemy. To the west were the mysterious elf lands, and to the south was the vast, unknown ocean. Its strategic spot often made it a battleground, leaving its rich lands empty, its people few, and its resources low. As the carriage took him to Island City, Ren focused on the papers about his new land. Leia, his faithful companion, watched him closely, worry on her face. Ren knew that to revive the area, he needed more people, as a strong workforce was key to any industrial revolution. He realized how big the challenge was but believed he could succeed. Ren wasn't starting from scratch. He had a special skill called Human Resource Scan, given to him by the system. This skill let him easily find and recognize talented people. After trying the skill on his family, Ren understood the world's talent levels well. His first goal in Island City was simple: find exceptional people who could help restore the territory. Meanwhile, Leia remembered the Duke's instructions: support Ren and make sure he doesn't cause chaos in the region. Quietly, she hoped Ren wouldn't mess things up. In Island City, the city lord's residence was full of tension. A nervous man reported that the Duke's youngest son would arrive soon and suggested they take action first. But the masked man across from him dismissed the worry with a calm response. He told them to wait for orders and not to touch Ren for now. His calm voice hid deep anger as he talked about making Aldean pay for past wrongs. The blonde-haired man nearby was more nervous. He worried about his fake financial records and stolen taxes. But the masked man laughed it off, calling Ren an ignorant playboy who wouldn't notice those details. All they needed was to give him some useless documents when he arrived. The blonde-haired man reluctantly agreed and went to get ready for Ren's arrival. As Ren's carriage neared Island City, he looked out at the empty fields and abandoned farms. His face grew serious as he took in the sight. He asked Leia for a map and studied the area closely. His eyes focused on the river to the west and the harbor to the south. An idea hit him. Dredging the river and building a canal to the sea might revive the land. Ren's thoughts were interrupted by a loud cry. The young girl knelt in the dirt, holding onto a man's leg, likely her father, who seemed set on going to a gambling den. The girl begged him not to gamble away their last money, meant for her mother's treatment. Her voice shook as she said losing the money would doom her sick mother. The man, lost in his greed, shouted at the girl to let go. His belief in his luck made him ignore her desperation. When she wouldn't let go, he angrily raised his hand to hit her. But before he could, Ren stepped in. With a quick punch, he knocked the man to the ground. Anger flared in Ren's eyes, though he winced right after. It was, after all, his first time throwing a punch. Leia hurried to Ren's side, worried. She gently scolded him, saying that next time he planned to hit someone, he should warn her so she could bring protection. Ren laughed it off, saying the punch was spontaneous, with no time to plan. He walked over to the man on the ground, telling Leia to check on the girl while he dealt with the gambler. The man, still holding his face, looked up at Ren in shock. Ren looked at him sharply, filled with disdain. He criticized him for taking money meant for his family and gambling it away, even trying to hit his daughter. The man scowled and asked who Ren was to interfere. Ren stepped closer, his presence intimidating. He warned the man that it didn't matter who he was. If he ever found him near a gambling den again, there would be consequences. Ren's cold tone and stern look scared the man. Stammering, the gambler promised to stay away from gambling and quickly fled. Feeling he handled it well, Ren turned to the girl, who stood there in shock. He asked if she was okay and used his system to check her condition. The girl, named Lillian, bowed her head, thanking Ren over and over. She explained that losing the money would have meant losing the chance to help her mother. As Ren looked at the system screen, he was intrigued by her stats. While most were normal, one special trait stood out: her potential in agriculture and harvesting. Seeing this talent, Ren decided to recruit her for his plans to restore the land. Ren smiled warmly at her, noting she was likely going to the city to find a doctor for her mother. He suggested she join his group since they were headed there too. Lillian hesitated, worried about dirtying his carriage, but Ren reassured her with a kind smile. He told her that a carriage was just a means of transport, just wood put together. There was no clean or dirty when it came to getting from one place to another. Plus, he had a few questions for her. Then, Ren's tone turned serious. He wondered why a gambling den existed in such a poor area. He thought about the region's recent troubles. Last fall, Grand Duke Ryan's soldiers attacked, causing many deaths. Early in the spring, floods devastated the land, leaving people struggling. The streets of Island City showed these scars, with beggars everywhere and despair in the air. As he walked through the broken streets, Ren decided he needed to do a full population check to see who could still work. But first, he wanted to go to the city lord's manor to look at the reserve funds and see what could be used for improvements. Ren asked Lillian where the manor was, but before she could answer, a shout interrupted them. A blonde-haired man on horseback rushed down the street, yelling for people to move. He didn't care about the chaos he caused, acting recklessly. Leia reacted fast, pulling Ren aside just in time to avoid the horse. The rider vanished into the distance, not caring about the trouble he left. Leia, though, glared after him angrily. To her, anyone who threatened Ren deserved the worst consequences. Leia held Ren protectively, and he struggled to breathe, finally getting her attention. She quickly let go, apologizing and asking if he was okay. Ren smiled, thanking her for her quick actions. Turning serious again, Ren asked Lillian if she knew the rider. Shaking, she said he was the young master of the Elwyn family, who owned all the gambling dens in Island City. Ren's interest was piqued. If the Elwyn family had money, it might help fund his plans. He asked Lillian to show him one of the gambling dens, but she tried to talk him out of it, worried he'd lose all his money. Ren, however, stayed confident. He assured her that the gambling den wouldn't get anything from him. Watching him, Lillian wondered who this determined young noble was. Soon, Ren reached the gambling den. The building stood out, showing how rich it was compared to the poor surroundings. Guards were at the entrance, but Ren walked up confidently. A sly smile appeared as he thought of his plans. He intended to take everything from this place to fund his industrial projects. Inside, the den was loud and chaotic. Gamblers begged for more money, sure they could win back their losses. Some celebrated small wins or mourned big losses. Ren watched closely. As long as this den was here, he knew the people of Island City wouldn't be motivated to work hard. Leia leaned in, speaking quietly and carefully, letting Ren know their soldiers had surrounded the den. She asked if they should proceed. Ren, staying calm, told her to wait. He aimed for a bigger catch. While he stood there, a staff member approached with a polite smile, asking what game he wanted to play. Ren smiled back, pretending he didn't know much about gambling, and said he wanted to try a few games. He asked for a simple game, thinking he was an easy target. The staff suggested a dice game and gave Ren 2 free chips to start. Ren took them, acting pleased. The game began as Ren tossed the 2 chips onto the betting slot. Watching this, the casino staff exchanged smug looks, sure of their trick. The dice rolled, landing on 6 and 6, big. The attendant pretended to sympathize, telling Ren he was close to winning. Ren played along, showing surprise at how fast the game ended. He said it wasn't very fun and mentioned he was hungry, turning to leave. But the attendant blocked his way, dropping the polite act and demanding payment for the chips. Ren frowned, pretending to be confused. Ren asked when he had agreed to owe anything. The attendant sneered, saying the chips were loans, not gifts. He added that each chip was worth 100 gold coins, and with fees and interest, Ren now owed 250 gold coins. Smirking, the attendant suggested that if Ren couldn't pay, he could leave his maid as collateral. Outraged, Lillian quickly spoke up. She accused the attendant of lying, explaining to Ren that the chips were worth no more than a silver coin each. Furious at being exposed, the attendant yelled for the guards to beat her. But before he could finish, Ren hit him hard, sending the man flying into a table. Adjusting his clothes, Ren calmly said that someone like the attendant had no right to speak here. The casino turned chaotic as gamblers rushed to grab the scattered chips. Ren sighed, watching them, muttering that none of these people were useful. Then, a commanding voice filled the room, asking who was causing trouble. It was the same man Ren had seen on horseback earlier. Ren smiled. He had finally caught the bigger target. The man's presence silenced the chaos. He looked around displeased and ordered his guards to deal with the troublemakers. The guards began beating those nearby, ignoring their cries. The rest watched in fear, too scared to interfere. The young master of the Elwyn family sneered, warning the crowd to behave or face the same fate. Lillian, holding Leia's arm, whispered that it was her fault. She felt guilty for bringing them to the den and ashamed for putting Ren and Leia in danger. She remembered how Ren had taken care of her mother, ensuring she got treatment and promising to pay the costs. That memory gave her strength. Gathering her courage, Lillian stepped forward and declared she wouldn't let them scam her brother. Her boldness caught everyone's attention, though most were too scared to react. Murmurs spread, questioning who she was to challenge the young master of the Elwyn family. Whale, the young master, looked at her coldly, angry at her defiance. Lillian stood firm, accusing him of using the casino to ruin families. She wouldn't let him bully Ren and Leia, saying they were good people who didn't deserve this. Whale, furious, lunged at her. Though scared, Lillian didn't move, protecting Ren with her small frame. Before Whale could reach her, Ren stepped in, grabbing his arm. Ren used his system skill to check Whale's stats. They were low, with only 5 loyalty points and a cruel, bloodthirsty personality. Ren saw the Elwyn family as a potential threat, one that could betray him anytime. Stopped. Whale glared at Ren, accusing him of not respecting the casino's rules. Ren let go and replied calmly, saying he knew the rules well. In this world, power was everything, and the strong set the rules. Whale, arrogantly sure he was the strongest in the city, questioned why Ren dared to oppose him, asking if Ren even knew who he was. Ren stayed calm, saying confidently that he didn't need to know who Whale was. What mattered was his strength, as his fist was bigger and his word was law. With that, he clapped his hands, signaling his soldiers to enter the casino. The scene shifted to a grand banquet held in Ren's honor, filled with the city's most powerful figures, each with hidden motives. Among them was Lucas, head of a prestigious family. He planned to work with the city lord to teach Ren a lesson. He intended to use Whale to connect with Ren for later manipulation, but was puzzled by Whale's absence. Frustrated, he realized he couldn't rely just on the city lord's incompetence and needed to adjust his plans. As the banquet buzzed with talk, a voice announced Ren's arrival. The mood shifted, growing tense and quiet as Ren entered. His presence commanded attention, and guests quickly changed their demeanor. The head of the Raven family hurried forward, introducing himself and giving Ren a gift. Another guest, head of the Jose family, introduced his daughter, hoping to gain favor. But Ren's sharp expression silenced the room as he told everyone to quiet down. With everyone present, Ren announced it was time to begin. He gestured for his attendants to bring a large blueprint, an unusual item that grabbed everyone's attention. Ren pointed to the blueprint and explained it was a design for a dam he had drawn that afternoon. He said he would hire skilled craftsmen to finalize the details during construction. The room buzzed with whispers and confused looks. Someone asked what a dam was, guessing it might be a fishing tool. Ren quickly called for silence and asked Flea to show a map of the area. With the room quiet, he began his explanation. Ren shared that during his survey of Island City, he found the cause of the city's annual flooding, a poorly managed canal in the far north. By building a dam there, they could control water flow, irrigate fields in the dry season, and prevent floods in the rainy season. Lucas, listening closely, was impressed by the plan's cleverness. He realized that if successful, the dam would greatly increase the city's food production. For the first time, he saw Ren as sharp and inventive. An older man in the crowd asked why this project mattered to them, and Ren calmly explained he needed their investments to fund the dam. This shocked everyone, causing a wave of grumbling. Many complained they were too poor to help. Lucas kept quiet, thinking Ren was smart but naive to expect these opportunists to invest willingly. But Ren wasn't as naive as they thought. Smiling, he told them not to pretend to be poor. He had a plan to make them rich. Ren revealed that he had seized a casino that afternoon and taken nearly 50,000 gold coins. He hinted that more casinos in Island City could be targeted similarly. The news left the crowd stunned. They quickly considered the implications. Some worried their shares in casino profits might be gone. Others hoped it wasn't their investment that was seized. It became clear that the largest casino belonged to Lord Andrine, suggesting Ren had angered a powerful enemy. Lucas, hiding his anger behind a calm face, stepped forward to challenge Ren. He accused Ren of breaking the law by shutting down a legitimate business without permission. Lucas stressed that the laws of the Corial Empire must be respected and warned Ren of the consequences. Others quickly agreed, accusing Ren of overstepping his authority, and noting that casinos were legitimate businesses. The crowd grew bolder, backing Lucas's objections. Ren, unfazed, stayed calm. He addressed them, pointing out their inconsistency. When he asked for investments, they claimed poverty. But now they were suddenly concerned about profits. He noted that many of them were involved with the casinos and warned this was their last chance to protect their reputations, or he would take matters into his own hands. At this, Ren's soldiers stepped forward, reminding everyone of his authority. Lucas, speaking for the group, insisted the Grand Duke wouldn't approve of Ren's reckless actions. Others pleaded with Ren to reconsider and urged him to act carefully. Ren smiled, seeing his plan unfold. With authority, he announced he would gladly discuss the law with them. His voice was calm but firm as he ordered those who could clarify the situation to be brought in. The crowd fell silent, tense, waiting to see what Ren would do next. At his command, 2 men captured at the casino were brought in. Lucas, among the nobles, was surprised to see them. These men were always with Whale, and their presence made Lucas uneasy. He started to fear something had happened to Whale. The men were brought in, tied up and unable to speak. Ren, still calm, asked Lucas if he recognized them. Lucas, keeping a straight face, denied knowing the men and asked what Ren meant. Ren smiled lightly, telling Lucas not to be so tense. He explained it wasn't a big deal. These men had tried to kill him the day before. Looking directly at Lucas, Ren added that the men claimed to control Island City and hinted at having a powerful supporter. Lucas's face darkened, though he tried to stay composed. Sweat formed on his brow as he tried to hide his discomfort. Ren ordered his soldiers to untie the two men, suggesting that the guests see if anyone recognized them. The nobles exchanged uneasy glances. Many instantly knew the men as Whale's attendants. Fear gripped the room as Ren's implications sank in. Lucas, realizing the seriousness, acted quickly. He grabbed a dagger and lunged at the two men with surprising fury. He called them wretched commoners for daring to attack the Duke's son and swiftly killed them both. Blood pooled on the floor, leaving the room silent as the nobles watched in horror, too scared to act. Standing over the bodies, Lucas turned to Ren with a look of feigned shame. He apologized, claiming he acted out of anger upon hearing of the assassination attempt, and begged for Ren's forgiveness. Ren, who had expected this, smiled knowingly. He praised Lucas for his sense of justice, commending him as a decisive noble. Lucas, hiding his relief, thanked Ren, saying he only did what was necessary. But Ren wasn't done. Calmly, he ordered his soldiers to bring out the mastermind to see if any other nobles were as principled as Lucas. The command made Lucas tense. His son, Whale, was dragged into the room. As soon as he entered, Whale, unaware of the situation, yelled at the soldiers to untie him. He boasted about his father's influence, threatening everyone with consequences. Lucas's expression crumbled at the sight of his son. His arrogance vanished as he realized why Whale wasn't at the banquet. Seeing his attendants dead, Whale erupted with rage. He insulted Ren, threatening him with torture once free. Ren, unfazed, chuckled. He noted sarcastically that Whale not only wanted him dead but also wanted to make him suffer. Whale continued boasting that no one in Island dared oppose him and that Ren's fate was sealed. Ren turned to Lucas, asking if he agreed with his son's claims. Whale, still unaware of Ren's identity, laughed and mocked further. Just as Whale was about to reveal Lucas's identity, his father cut him off sharply. Lucas, now desperate, scolded Whale, calling him a disobedient son. He ordered Whale to kneel before Ren, and when his son hesitated, Lucas forced him down. Falling to his knees with Whale, Lucas pleaded for Ren's mercy. He begged for forgiveness, offering all his possessions to spare Whale's life. It was then that Whale realized his mistake. He remembered his father's advice to befriend the Duke's son and fear crept in as he understood Ren's identity. Stammering, Whale apologized and promised never to act foolishly again. Ren's expression stayed cold as he told Whale that his soldiers and authority proved his status. Lucas joined in, pledging the Elwyn family's loyalty to Ren and offering to surrender all their illegal assets. Ren, unmoved, told Lucas he would accept the assets. He assured him that if he complied, his family would remain safe. Relieved, Lucas thanked him, but glancing at the city lord, he realized his influence was now weakened. With little choice left, Lucas quietly informed Ren of a plot against the Duke. He revealed that Lord Eldry had been working with outside enemies to betray the city. The revelation shocked the room, and all eyes turned to Eldry, who was frozen with fear. Lucas was about to elaborate, but Ren interrupted sharply. He accused Lucas of slandering Eldry and said he had been lenient enough. Ren ordered his guards to take Lucas and Whale out for execution. Lucas was stunned and terrified, unable to grasp Ren's sudden change. Meanwhile, Eldry, relieved by Ren's reaction, stepped forward to pledge loyalty. He praised Ren for his wisdom and promised unwavering support. Ren, smiling, assured Eldry of his trust. But secretly, Ren used his system to analyze Eldry's attributes. Among ordinary stats, he noticed the trait of greed and a loyalty level of only 15. Ren decided Eldry, like Lucas, would eventually be dealt with. For now, he would use Eldry's resources to further his plans. After the banquet, Ren worked late into the night. The nobles had contributed over 100,000 gold coins, equal to 2 years of taxes from Island. Yet, the amount didn't satisfy him. As Ren focused on his work, Leia came in with a cup of tea. She set it on the desk, noticing his displeased expression. Ren took the tea and remarked bitterly, questioning if Leia knew just how wealthy the nobles really were. Leia didn't answer his question. Instead, she brought up something more urgent. She asked what Ren planned to do about Lucas's revelation at the party. If Eldry, the city lord, truly intended to betray them, Ren could be in great danger. Ren reassured her, asking her to remain calm. He admitted he was sure of Eldry's betrayal but said it wasn't the right time to confront him. When Leia asked why, Ren stretched and stood, explaining that Eldry's full network in Island was still unknown. Acting too soon would cause unnecessary chaos. For now, it was best to let Eldry think Ren was an unaware young lord, oblivious to the threats. The next morning, Eldry met with Guild Master Malcolm at the Mages Guild. He handed Malcolm a piece of paper, and after reading it, the guild master's face twisted with anger. Malcolm slammed the paper down, calling the situation ridiculous. Eldry, calm and calculating, asked him not to overreact. He dismissed Ren as a young, eager noble trying to impress the Grand Duke. Malcolm, however, wasn't satisfied. His irritation grew as he reminded Eldry that even the Grand Duke spoke respectfully to the Mages Guild. Eldry, pleased with Malcolm's anger, celebrated inwardly. He believed Ren had given him the perfect chance to win over the guild, something he hadn't been able to do before. As Malcolm left with the paper, vowing to demand answers from Ren, Eldry silently rejoiced, confident that Ren would soon be isolated. Meanwhile, Ren was in his study, drafting plans for a hydraulic project. The work reminded him of the challenges he faced in his past life. Leia came in to tell him about an unexpected visitor. Guildmaster Malcolm had arrived and demanded to see him. Surprised, Ren quickly headed to the parlor to meet him. As soon as Ren entered, Malcolm confronted him angrily, slamming a recruitment notice on the table and accusing Ren of insulting the Mages Guild. Ren, puzzled, asked for clarification. Malcolm pointed to the notice, which stated that no mages, the disabled, or the elderly would be hired for Ren's project. He demanded to know why Ren had issued such a notice. Ren looked at the paper and calmly explained that it was related to the dam construction project. He saw no connection between the notice and any insult to the guild. Malcolm disagreed, accusing Ren of blatant provocation. He argued that excluding mages disrespected the guild and its members. Ren was surprised that mages were interested in manual labor jobs. Still angry, Malcolm warned that if no reasonable explanation was given, all mages in the guild would refuse to serve him. Ren frowned and silently used his system to check Malcolm's stats. The system showed Malcolm's loyalty level was 82, and his personality was inquisitive and straightforward. Ren realized Malcolm had been misled. Smiling, Ren patiently explained his reasoning. He outlined 3 key points. First, mages had limited mana and could only do a little work each day, making them unsuitable for large-scale construction. Second, their pay was equal to 10 common laborers, making them too expensive. Third, as a noble, Ren's duty was to prioritize the welfare of ordinary people who didn't have the guild's support. Malcolm remained unconvinced. He argued magic was revered, and those without it deserved to be beneath mages. Ren, irritated, admitted it might reflect reality but stated he intended to change it. He declared that starting in Islan, he would show that mages were no different from ordinary humans. Malcolm, deeply insulted, gave an ultimatum. He demanded Ren retract his statement or face the Mages Guild's anger. Ren's expression turned cold as he reminded Malcolm to mind his tone. Leia, standing nearby, pressed a knife to Malcolm's throat, her eyes fierce. Malcolm froze in fear as Ren calmly pointed out there was a law allowing a noble's maid to execute someone for disrespect. Ren suggested testing the law with a small cut to see which side the court would favor. Trembling, Malcolm quickly apologized, admitting his mistake and begging for forgiveness. Ren, seeing that Malcolm's loyalty hadn't dropped, understood the guildmaster acted out of ignorance rather than malice. Choosing not to escalate, Ren instructed Leia to escort Malcolm out. Malcolm thanked Ren and left quickly. As he departed, the system notified Ren that a beginner task was completed. He had used the investigation function on 10 individuals. A reward was issued, and a new task appeared: train 5 characters with high stats. Happy with his progress, Ren decided to review his rewards later. Outside the estate, Eldry waited for Malcolm. Seeing the guild master, he hurried over, pretending to be concerned. He asked how the meeting went. Malcolm, still feeling humiliated, sighed and admitted that Ren didn't listen and threw him out. Eldry, frustrated but quick to adapt, came up with another plan. He assured Malcolm he had a solution that would not only change Ren's mind but also make him respect the Mages Guild. After his initial plan failed, Eldry quickly devised another approach. He encouraged Malcolm to manipulate the townsfolk into refusing to work for Ren, thinking that resistance would force Ren to seek Malcolm's help. However, Malcolm rejected the idea, noting that Ren offered great working conditions the townsfolk wouldn't refuse. Undeterred, Eldry suggested another strategy. He proposed that if those working for Ren were shown to be lazy, Ren would eventually be disappointed with the commoners. Malcolm dismissed this, explaining his issue was solely with Ren's refusal to hire mages, not with the commoners. He was hesitant to act against Ren for such a reason. Eldry persisted, urging Malcolm to reconsider. He argued that the commoners' laziness was why they were starving and struggling. If the land couldn't yield crops, Eldry reasoned, why didn't they hunt for food? He claimed that idle people like the commoners couldn't genuinely work hard for Ren. Reluctantly, Malcolm agreed to give the plan a try. Meanwhile, Ren's recruitment notice was posted in the town center, quickly drawing a crowd. The townsfolk gathered to read the announcement, intrigued by the new lord's plans and his call for workers. As they read it, they were stunned. The job offered an 8-hour workday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., 3 meals a day, and a wage of 10 coins per day. A young man in the crowd was skeptical, questioning why the new lord was being so generous. Others shared his doubts, suspecting it might be a scam. Many remembered how nobles had deceived them before. Some argued that working under such terms could be dangerous and might even cost them their lives. At that moment, Lillian stepped forward, speaking with strength and determination. She defended Ren, saying he promised to improve everyone's lives. Her sincerity was met with laughter and ridicule. The crowd dismissed her words as naive, mocking her for trusting a noble. Even her father joined in, accusing her of being charmed by Ren. Ignoring her father's remarks and the townsfolk's jeers, Lillian declared she would register for the dam project. The recruiter, a young man handling the registrations, stayed calm despite the crowd's skepticism. Turning to Lillian's father, he invited him to work on the dam but said Lillian couldn't participate. Confused, Lillian asked why she was excluded, insisting she was healthy and capable. The recruiter explained that Ren had strict rules against hiring anyone under 18. He stressed that hiring underage workers without Ren's approval would lead to severe punishment. Handing Lillian's father a registration form, he repeated the terms, 3 meals a day, an 8-hour workday, and a wage of 10 coins per day. If there were no further issues, he invited Lillian's father to sign and start work the next day. Though slightly disappointed, Lillian encouraged her father to do his best and avoid laziness. Her father, smiling warmly, patted her head and reassured her. He promised not to gamble again and not to disappoint Ren. He also reminded Lillian to stay home the next day to care for her mother, who was too ill for hard tasks. Before they could leave, the recruiter called them back. Surprised, Lillian's father asked if there was a problem. The recruiter, looking concerned, mentioned he overheard the father say his wife was very ill. Lillian's father quickly clarified that his wife couldn't work due to her condition. The recruiter smiled kindly and reassured him he wasn't asking her to work. He explained that Ren had arranged for workers' families to stay in dormitories for the duration of the project. Seeing the father's confusion, the recruiter clarified that the dormitories were temporary housing units for families involved in the dam's construction. Once the project was completed, families could return to their original homes. Moved by such generosity, Lillian's father was deeply touched. Falling to his knees, he expressed his gratitude to the recruiter. The young man quickly helped him up, saying there was no need for such gestures. He then offered to show them a room where they could stay, letting them choose their accommodations. The surrounding townsfolk, who had watched the exchange, were amazed. Realizing Ren's promises were genuine, they began rushing to sign up for work. The square descended into chaos as people scrambled to register, eager for the opportunity. Meanwhile, in his office, Ren was reviewing updates from the system. A notification suddenly popped up. Congratulations, you have received the lithium battery blueprint from the newbie gift pack. Instead of excitement, Ren felt irritated. He muttered to himself, questioning the system's logic. Without a generator, a battery was practically useless. Did the system expect him to summon a lightning strike? After venting his frustration, he calmed down and began to think. Ren's thoughts shifted to the task of training 5 individuals with high stats. He had no idea where to find such people. Initially, he considered training Leia, but the system showed she had already reached her potential, leaving no room for growth. After considering his options, Ren decided his best bet was to search for talented individuals within Island City. As Ren contemplated his next steps, there was a knock at the door. Leia's voice called out, informing him that Lillian had come to see him. Ren allowed her to enter. Lillian stepped in, her face tense with worry. She quickly explained that something was wrong at the construction site. The workers were too lethargic to work. Ren was surprised by the report and asked her to elaborate. Lillian recounted what she had observed during her visit to the site. She had gone to check on her father and noticed that none of the workers seemed to have the energy to complete their tasks. Initially, she thought they were just being lazy, but her father explained that everyone felt unusually fatigued upon waking up. It wasn't just him. Every worker shared the same condition. Lillian had tried to encourage them, reminding them of the generous benefits Lord Ren had provided, but her words didn't help. The workers insisted that their fatigue wasn't intentional. They genuinely lacked the strength to work. Some speculated that their bodies weren't used to the labor after being inactive for so long. Others suggested taking a day off to recover before continuing their duties. However, Lillian dismissed these excuses, declaring that there was no such illness. She firmly believed they were just being lazy. When she realized her efforts were futile, she decided to bring the matter directly to Ren. After hearing her account, Ren quickly headed to the construction site. Upon arrival, he observed the workers himself. Their lethargy was clear. To understand better, Ren used his system abilities to analyze their stats. On the surface, everything seemed normal, but he noticed one key anomaly. All the workers were under a curse. Ren turned to Lillian and calmly explained the situation. They're not sick, they're cursed. After realizing the workers were cursed, Ren surveyed the site, thinking about his next move. He decided to test his new skill, geological survey. Initially, he planned to use this skill during the dam's construction, but the current situation called for immediate action. With this ability, Ren could analyze various geological features, including minerals, hydrology, and topography within a defined area. Under Ren's command, the system activated, conducting a survey within a 10-kilometer radius. Moments later, the results appeared in his mind. While the survey confirmed the absence of valuable resources like oil or metals, something unusual caught Ren's attention. Acting on his instincts, he asked Lillian's father to help him dig at a marked spot. The man agreed without hesitation, ready to work hard for Ren. After digging about a meter into the ground, they uncovered a strange black stone. Ren crouched down to examine the stone, curious about its nature. Leia, nearby, was amazed at Ren's ability to detect the faint magical energy from the stone, something even she had overlooked with her expertise. Ren instructed the group to carefully remove the crystal and store it safely in a box. Turning to Leia, Ren asked what the usual procedure was for dealing with cursed individuals. Leia, surprised by the question, explained that curses were typically resolved by priests at a church or by high-ranking mages from the Mage Association. Hearing this, Ren frowned, suspecting a connection to the Mage Association. He decided to take Lillian and her father to the local church for help. Lillian, worried, asked if her father was truly cursed. Ren reassured her, promising to make the culprit pay for their actions. They quickly made their way to the church, where they were greeted by a stunning priestess. She welcomed Ren warmly, her demeanor calm and composed. Ren, always cautious, used his system to check her loyalty before entrusting her with the task. The system revealed her stats, a loyalty level of 95%, race as elf, and an actual age of about 257 years, though she looked no older than 24. Ren was surprised to learn she wasn't human but felt reassured by her high loyalty. Introducing herself, the priestess said her name was Eri and called herself the Holy Maiden of the Church. She politely asked about the purpose of their visit. Pointing to Lillian's father, Ren explained that the man seemed cursed and asked if Eri could help. Eri nodded confidently and began examining the man. Closing her eyes briefly, she reopened them with a golden glow, scanning him intently. After a moment, she confirmed Ren's suspicion and began the treatment. Summoning a glowing sphere of light, she directed it into the man's body, expelling the dark energy. Instantly, the man felt rejuvenated, expressing his gratitude to Ren and vowing to return to work immediately. Ren, smiling, advised him to rest and ensure everything was fully resolved before going back to work. He then retrieved the box with the black crystal and asked Eri for her opinion on it. Eri examined the crystal carefully, identifying it as a magic crystal infused with a significant amount of magical energy. She explained that such energy was often used for casting curses. However, she clarified that this particular curse was more of a prank, designed to cause fatigue rather than serious harm. The explanation made Ren uneasy, so he asked if such crystals were difficult to produce. Eri replied that for a high-level mage, creating one crystal a day was relatively simple. They could easily scatter them across the construction site. Ren's expression darkened as he realized the interference was deliberate. Eri acknowledged Ren's project, praising its impact on reducing the number of people seeking aid from the church. Ren, now certain of the culprit's identity, resolved to take action. He asked Eri if it was possible to lift the curse over the entire construction site. Eri regretfully informed him that such a feat wasn't possible. Removing individual crystals daily would only slow the project's progress. Ren sighed, recognizing the need to address the root of the problem. Eri then mentioned someone who might be able to help but warned that this individual was eccentric. She provided an address, and Ren decided to investigate. Ren and Leia arrived at a large mansion, which Eri had identified as the home of Selena, the former president of the Mage Association. Approaching the door, Ren knocked firmly, his determination unwavering. Suddenly, Leia sensed danger and swiftly pulled Ren aside. Moments later, an explosion erupted from the upper floor of the mansion, sending smoke and debris into the air. Ren, startled, demanded to know what was happening. From the smoke, a stunning woman emerged, her voice filled with frustration. She cursed her failed experiment, vowing to succeed even if it meant blowing up the entirety of Island City. After entering the house, Ren calmly presented his request to Selena, explaining the issue and seeking her assistance. However, she refused outright, dismissing him curtly. She informed Ren that she was preoccupied with researching a new magical device and had no time to deal with his problems. Intrigued, Ren asked her to elaborate, questioning if she meant something like a magic wand. Selena sneered at the suggestion, mocking his limited understanding. Leia, her demeanor icy, immediately intervened, warning Selena to watch her tone when addressing young Master Ren. Annoyed by Leia's reprimand, Selena turned her gaze toward her and commented on Leia's impressive magical power. With a sly smile, Selena suggested that Leia stay as her assistant. In return, Selena promised to help Ren once her research succeeded. Sparks of lightning crackled around Selena as she showed off her power. Leia, unflinching, prepared to retaliate, her voice sharp as she offered to teach Selena some manners. Sensing the rising tension, Ren stepped between them, urging Leia to stand down. He reminded her that they were there for help, not to start a fight. Looking at Selena's cluttered workspace, Ren asked if she had created the items scattered across the table. He wanted to know if they were magical devices. Selena's eyes gleamed with pride as she confirmed his observation. She clarified, however, that everything on the table was a failed product. She explained that she was trying to create a magical device capable of sealing the lightning element magic within her body. Ren was astonished. He marveled at the concept, comparing it to storing electrical energy. Selena confirmed his interpretation and mentioned that the earlier explosion was due to her devices failing to withstand her power. Dismissing him again, she said she needed to rest and continue her research. Ren paused, deep in thought, before making an offer. He told Selena that if he could help her create the device she needed, she would have to assist him with his issues regarding the Mages Guild. Selena, skeptical and irritated, brushed him off, claiming her research was far too complex for someone like him to solve. Remaining composed, Ren assured her he was serious. He promised to help her create the magical device, asking for her support in return. Intrigued but doubtful, Selena finally agreed, setting a condition. If Ren succeeded, she would not only deal with Malcolm but also ensure the Mages Guild obeyed his every command. However, if he failed, she wouldn't hesitate to punish him. Without wasting time, Ren asked Selena to prepare the required materials. Using the blueprint provided by the system, he guided her in assembling a lithium battery pack, consisting of 8 large batteries linked together. Despite their efforts, Ren felt nervous. They lacked a reliable power source to test the device, as a hydraulic generator wasn't available. They had no choice but to rely on Selena's magic as a substitute. Selena, following Ren's instructions, assembled the components but remained skeptical. She reminded him that most materials couldn't handle her magical power and warned that the device might explode. Ren, unfazed, handed her the wires and reassured her. He explained that the battery pack had a capacity of approximately 185 watt-hours and urged her to channel her energy into it. Reluctantly, Selena began discharging her magic. To her surprise, the device absorbed her energy without any issues. Curious, she increased the output, yet the battery remained stable. Selena, shocked, demanded to know why the device hadn't exploded. Ren smirked and teased her, suggesting that her magical power wasn't as impressive as she thought. Infuriated, Selena unleashed her full strength. Even at maximum output, the battery pack held steady, showing no signs of damage. Selena was left speechless at how much power the device could contain and how effortlessly Ren had built it. Ren, satisfied, stepped forward to check the charge level. The battery was at 87% capacity. Internally, he marveled at Selena's strength. She had charged nearly the entire pack, enough to power an electric car for over 3,000 kilometers. Ren's confidence grew as he turned to Selena and declared his plans to revolutionize the Mages Guild. He referred to them as potential power banks and explained his vision for their magical abilities. Selena, intrigued, asked if Ren himself could use lightning magic. Ren didn't deny it. Instead, he claimed he could make everyone in Island City capable of wielding magic. Selena was skeptical, pointing out that magic couldn't simply be learned by anyone. Ren, however, remained composed. He hinted at possessing a magical device even more powerful than the battery pack and promised to show her a world where magic was accessible to all if she agreed to help him. Selena, both baffled and curious, couldn't imagine such a possibility, but decided to continue working with him. The next day at the Mages Guild, Malcolm was leisurely reading a book, confident that Ren would soon come begging for his help. His calm was interrupted by Selena's sudden arrival. Seeing her enter, Malcolm froze in shock. The former president of the Mages Guild was the last person he expected to see. Stammering, He greeted her cautiously, wondering why she had come. Selena's voice rose in anger as she confronted Malcolm, accusing him of daring to challenge the authority of the Grand Duke's household. Her words carried a sharp edge as she questioned whether he was planning a rebellion. Malcolm, visibly shaken, stammered nervously, denying any such intentions. He assured Selena that he would never harbor such dangerous thoughts. Unconvinced, Selena grabbed Malcolm by the collar, her patience visibly wearing thin. She demanded the truth, insisting he confess what he had done at Ren's construction site. Malcolm, trembling, quickly relented. He admitted to summoning all the mages from the guild and inciting their anger by claiming that young Master Ren had disrespected them. He confessed to instructing the mages to craft curse-infused crystals and using teleportation magic to plant them underground at the construction site. This scheme was meant to cause the workers to feel fatigued, hoping Ren would blame them for laziness. Malcolm's goal was to force Ren to apologize and seek closer cooperation with the Mages Guild. Selena listened with a mix of disbelief and frustration. Shaking her head, she called Malcolm a fool and pointed out that he had been manipulated. When Malcolm, still confused, asked who had used him, Selena dismissed his question. Instead, she ordered him to recall every mage involved in the sabotage immediately. Malcolm nodded hastily and rushed off to follow her command. Once Malcolm was gone, Selena pulled out a talisman to contact Ren. She informed him that she had resolved the issue with the Mages Guild. Through the talisman, Ren expressed his gratitude, thanking her for her assistance. Selena, curious, asked if he needed her help dealing with Eldry, offering to make him disappear without a trace. Ren quickly declined, waving his hand reflexively, even though she couldn't see him. He explained that Eldry wasn't a significant concern and that he still needed him to lure out a bigger threat. Accepting Ren's decision, Selena agreed not to interfere. Her tone shifted to excitement as she brought up the new inventions Ren had mentioned earlier. She pressed him for details, asking when they would be ready and insisting he call her when he began working on them. Ren reassured her that he would keep her informed but emphasized the importance of having the guild's mages finish charging the battery clusters first. The next day, at the city lord's residence, Eldry met with a mysterious man cloaked in shadow. Eldry, visibly worried, reported that Ren had already taken control of the Mages Guild. He nervously asked for guidance. The mysterious man remained calm and dismissive, stating that the Mages Guild posed no real threat aside from Selena. He redirected Eldry's attention to Ren's dam project, warning that if the dam succeeded, it could revitalize the people of Islan, which they couldn't allow. Eldry assured the man that he had already set traps for Ren and revealed another plan. He intended to pressure the nobles in charge of food supplies to raise prices, undermining Ren's efforts. When the mysterious man expressed doubt about the nobles' loyalty, Eldry confidently explained that while the nobles might betray him, they would never betray their financial interests. Flicking a gold coin into the air with a smirk, Eldry declared that Ren's funds wouldn't last until the dam's completion. As the coin landed on the table, the mysterious man's figure dissolved into thin air. Meanwhile, in the bustling market, Lillian was buying supplies for the construction site when a shopkeeper rudely chased her away. His tone was condescending as he told her to leave if she couldn't afford the goods. Lillian, frustrated, pointed out the absurd price hike. Just the day before, 2 bags of grain had cost 1 gold coin, but now 1 bag alone was priced at 2 gold coins. The shopkeeper, unfazed, arrogantly stated that he could set whatever prices he wanted. He mocked her inability to pay and raised his hand as if to strike her. The commotion drew the attention of onlookers, many of whom were outraged by the shopkeeper's actions. Lillian, determined to fulfill her task for Ren, accused the merchants of profiteering and warned them of Ren's potential wrath. The shopkeeper sneered, dismissing her threat. He claimed his business was honest and that Ren had no grounds to interfere. His arrogance only deepened the frustration of those watching. At the church, Eri was equally infuriated by the rampant price gouging. She noted that food prices had tripled in just 3 days, leaving her with inadequate grain to sustain the people through the winter. Handing a pouch of coins to her assistant, Ira, she instructed her to buy whatever supplies she could, promising to figure out the rest later. Ira hesitated, surprised by the unusually large sum of money, and pointed out that bribing guards typically required much less. Eri sighed, urging Ira to follow her orders without question. Before Ira could act, Leia appeared suddenly, snatching the pouch with lightning speed and handing it to Ren. With a calm but determined expression, Ren suggested a collaboration. Ren proposed to Eri that they work together to control the food supply and ensure fair pricing. He explained that by pooling their resources and influence, they could stabilize the market and protect the people from exploitation. Ren proposed working together on a larger plan, one that would address the root of the crisis and prevent further exploitation by the merchants. Eri looked at Ren with suspicion, questioning what kind of cooperation he had in mind. Ren smiled at her guarded demeanor, suggesting she relax and not be so tense about discussing cooperation. He then casually mentioned that he knew she was an elf. Eri, though deeply concerned that Ren had discovered her true identity, maintained her composure and denied it, insisting that an elf couldn't possibly be living in a human city. Ren, unfazed, tossed a pouch of coins back to Eri and reassured her that he held no malicious intentions toward her or her kind. Eri, avoiding the topic, redirected the conversation, again asking what kind of cooperation he was proposing. Ren gestured toward the sacks of food on a cart nearby and explained that he wanted to collaborate on resolving the issue of food supplies in the city. While Eri respected Ren's determination, she doubted his ability to tackle such a deeply entrenched problem. She openly voiced her skepticism, prompting Ren to ask why she felt that way. Eri elaborated, explaining that food supplies in Islan were controlled by 4 major families who had held power in the city for over a century. These families tightly regulated prices, and their influence was unshakable. She reminded Ren that although he had used strong-arm tactics at the recent banquet to intimidate some of them, they were cunning individuals who would undoubtedly find a way to recover their losses. Ren interrupted her, curious about her in-depth knowledge of the city's inner workings. Eri admitted that she had lived in Islan for over 120 years and understood its complexities well. She further suggested that had Ren eliminated the Elwyn family at the banquet, there might have been a chance for reconciliation. But now it was too late. Eri added that due to war and natural disasters, food was already scarce, and if prices remained high, her tribe would struggle to survive the winter. Ren cut her off again, his gaze resolute. He promised Eri that within 2 weeks, food prices in Islan would plummet to levels even lower than before the recent price hikes. At the mansion of Augustus Ken, head of the Klein family, a celebratory gathering was underway. Augustus expressed his gratitude to Eldri for his support, acknowledging that their alliance had led to significant profits. Others in the room echoed their thanks, raising their glasses to toast Augustus and their shared success. The mood was jubilant as the group reveled in their recent gains, confident in their strategy. Their celebration was interrupted by a servant announcing that Ren had invited them to attend a banquet at his mansion. One of the men, startled by the news, speculated nervously whether Ren was planning to punish them. Turning to Augustus, he asked for guidance on how they should proceed. Augustus, calm and calculating, reassured them that they had nothing to fear. He explained that their trade in food supplies was entirely legal and protected by the system they had established. Augustus emphasized that as long as they didn't openly defy Ren, they wouldn't be in danger. He pointed out that the collective strength of their 4 families was formidable, and that even the king had no authority to interfere with food pricing. With this reasoning, the group relaxed, agreeing that their position was secure. Augustus suggested that if Ren attempted to pressure them, they could make a token gesture by slightly lowering prices, perhaps by 5 copper coins. However, he warned them sternly that any betrayal would result in severe consequences. With their confidence restored, Augustus encouraged the group to prepare for the banquet. Despite their initial surprise at his insistence on changing into old, tattered clothes, they followed his lead. At Ren's mansion, a servant informed him that Augustus and the invited guests had arrived. Ren instructed the servant to invite them in and ensure the kitchen prepared the food. When Augustus and the others entered, Ren immediately noticed their deliberate attempts to appear impoverished. Their once lavish clothing replaced with ragged attire. Amused, he thought to himself how poorly they played their roles. Maintaining his composure, Ren greeted them with mock surprise. He commented on how unexpected it was to see the nobleman who controlled Islan's food supply looking so destitute. Augustus quickly responded, praising Ren's projects and claiming that they too wanted to contribute to the greater good. Another man chimed in, explaining that under Augustus's leadership, they had not only donated money to Ren's initiatives, but also sold food from their warehouses at the lowest possible prices, even taking a loss to help the citizens. Leia, observing their shameless behavior, felt nothing but disdain. Their blatant lies and attempts to deceive Ren did not surprise her. Ren, however, played along, thanking them for their understanding and claiming to be deeply moved by their support. He explained that he had invited them to discuss the grain trade plan. Before Ren could continue, Augustus interrupted, asserting that they understood Ren's financial difficulties. He reiterated that at the current price of 2 gold coins per sack of food, they were already selling at a loss. The group agreed with Augustus, supporting what he said. Ren smiled and explained his plan. He suggested making the price of food in Island 4 gold coins per sack starting the next day. The nobles were surprised. Augustus, puzzled, asked if Ren had made a mistake, unsure if he heard right. Ren didn't repeat but calmly reminded Augustus about the 30% commission he would take. Hearing this, Augustus and the nobles exchanged pleased looks. At first, they had thought Ren was just a young and inexperienced lord. Now, they saw him as a smart businessman like themselves. They saw Ren as someone who understood their goals and believed that with his support, their businesses would grow. They regretted not realizing how clever he was sooner. They could have teamed up with him earlier. Augustus, while happy with Ren's idea, knew they couldn't act too quickly. Without an official announcement, raising prices too much could cause problems and hurt their interests. So, Augustus politely thanked Ren for understanding and asked when the official announcement would come out. Ren, ready for this, told Leia to give him a document. Happily, he told them he had already written and stamped the official notice with his family seal and it would be shared after their meal. As they talked more, Ren reminded the nobles that they would follow his lead now, suggesting they learn from the mistakes of the Elwyn family. Augustus quickly promised they wouldn't let him down. After the banquet, the nobles met again at Augustus's place. Ren's surprising plan had left them confused. They discussed whether to inform Eldry about this change, noting how odd it was for Ren to raise prices instead of lowering them. Some thought he was just being greedy, but Augustus dismissed their worries, calling it a great chance. He reminded them that if too many people knew about their plan, their profits would decrease. He assured them that Ren was just a young man using offers to win them over and told them to keep the price increase quiet. A huge fortune was within reach, and only a fool would let it slip away. Despite Augustus's confidence, one cautious noble felt uneasy. He admitted he had never seen such a profitable opportunity in all his years, which made him wary. Still, he promised to follow Augustus, bowing deeply to show his loyalty. The others quickly did the same, pledging their support to Augustus. Pleased, Augustus laughed and declared they would work together from now on. He suggested they buy all the grain from smaller merchants before the announcement, so they could control the market and increase their profits. Meanwhile, back at Ren's estate, unexpected guests arrived. Scientist Ira burst in, clearly angry. She accused Ren of siding with corrupt merchants and demanded to know why he had promised to lower grain prices, but let them rise instead. Her anger was clear as she said she wouldn't let the elf race be taken advantage of. Lillian stepped in, trying to calm her. She told Ira that Ren planned to lower food prices and asked her to trust him. Still upset, Ira argued that Ren was already helping the greedy merchants. Lillian kept her faith in Ren's decisions, asking Ira to believe in his plan. After a tense moment, Ira looked at Ren with concern. Carefully, she asked if he really planned to raise food prices. Ren smiled but didn't share his full plan, only assuring her that prices would drop soon. At worst, he promised, they would hit their lowest in 2 weeks. Ira, not convinced, thought Ren was being naive. She believed he didn't understand the harsh realities. Having lived over 200 years, she had never seen food prices fall after a big increase. Ren, noticing her doubt, became serious. He asked a rhetorical question. If he threatened the nobles, how much did she think they'd lower the price by? 1 coin? 10 coins? Ira had no answer but stayed skeptical. She argued that raising the price to 4 gold coins per sack was too much, pointing out that at 2 gold coins, people already struggled to buy food. With double the price, starvation seemed certain. Ren stayed calm, explaining that whether the price was 2 or 4 gold coins, people would still face hunger. The only difference was when it would happen. He said that just lowering the price by a few coins wouldn't make a real impact. His aim wasn't charity. He wanted to ruin the merchants and take away their wealth. 7 days went by, and during this time, Ren focused on teaching Selena about lithium batteries. Selena was fascinated by how complex they were and was deeply interested in the lessons. Their session was interrupted when Leia suddenly appeared, announcing that Saintess Ira had come to visit again. Ira had visited often in the past days, making Ren wonder if she had too much free time. Selena, also curious, asked Ren why he had raised food prices on purpose. By now, grain prices in the city had climbed to nearly 7 gold coins per sack. Ren was surprised by how fast the prices had gone up, but before he could answer, Ira burst into the room. She immediately scolded him, saying that not only common people but even some nobles couldn't afford food now. She asked if he realized how serious the situation was. Staying calm, Ren asked Leia how many days had passed since the price increase. Leia quickly answered, saying it had been 7 days. Hearing this, Ren smiled and said it was time to deal with the merchants. Ira, still upset, demanded Ren stop being vague and explain his plan. She warned that if he didn't, the elf tribe might cut ties with him. Ren finally explained that he hadn't shared the full plan before because he didn't want to disrupt things or make the nobles suspicious. Now that everything was set, he was ready to explain. Ren revealed that the announcement of a minimum food price of 4 gold coins per sack had been in effect for 7 days. He then asked Ira what she thought the city lacked the most right now. After thinking for a moment, she replied that there didn't seem to be a shortage of anything. Ren smiled knowingly and calmly said, "What the city lacks are merchants who sell grain." Finally, Ira understood Ren's plan and was paralyzed by how cunning he was. Ren, pleased to see her reaction, revealed that the one thing this city wasn't lacking was food, and the merchants who sold it. Greed was the easiest human trait to exploit because, naturally, no one could resist their own desires. The price of grain in the city of Ashline had risen to 4 gold coins per sack, and this news reached the ears of merchants in nearby cities. Immediately, they grew eager, bringing grain and rushing toward the city. Foreign merchants brought large amounts of grain into the city, only for Augustus and his friends to buy them at high prices, further fueling the merchants' greed. Now, it could be said that Ashline was the city with the most grain in the entire empire, and all the merchants were losing their minds over the chance to make a 10,000% profit, with only 2 words on their minds: get rich. Ren smiled wickedly, knowing that after today, the 4 noble families of the city would cease to exist. Ren asked Leah to post an announcement throughout the city, saying that the Holy Maiden Ira was selling the church's grain reserves because she disapproved of Ren's methods. With a smile, he decided to let everyone know the price, 1 gold coin per sack. Leah nodded. Ira, showing concern, wanted to know why Ren was giving her such a good reputation. With a calm demeanor, he responded with a question: "I don't have any grain, how am I supposed to sell it?" This made Ira nervous because she didn't have much grain either, realizing that Ren planned to force her to sell all the grain her people needed to survive the winter. Without hesitation, she refused. Selena, smiling faintly, called Ira naive, arguing that if she were in her place, she would listen to Ren and sell all the grain immediately since every second of delay meant losing more money. Ira didn't change her mind because the elves weren't interested in money, they only wanted grain. Ren suggested she trust him, as her grain stockpile would only increase. He turned to Selena, confidently expressing his trust in her and the magical association to seal off the city. With a confident demeanor, Selena promised not to let even a single rat escape the city. Ren decided it was time to make those greedy merchants pay. A little later, while distracted reading the notice, Leah appeared, visibly worried. Noticing her expression, Ren asked if there was a problem. Leah, being honest, explained she was worried things wouldn't go as planned. What if the merchants held out for a few days and all of Ira's grain was sold? Ren revealed there were 2 types of plans. One was a secret conspiracy, and the other was an open plan. A secret plot could be avoided, but there was no escaping an open plan. The foreign merchants were blinded by desire, risking everything on this opportunity, and they would fight to get rich overnight. Now, if they realized prices would drop, they'd panic and sell everything. Being slow only meant death. The next day, one of Augustus' men reported bad news. The church had announced it would sell its reserve grain to help the people for just 1 gold coin per sack. Another man, showing concern, mentioned this was bad since they had completely forgotten about the church. They didn't know what to do since they had bought their grain for 2 gold coins per sack. But they remained calm, believing the church only had enough grain to last a few days. Seeing an opportunity to make money, Augustus commanded his men to send someone to buy as much grain as possible. Many merchants gathered in front of the church to buy grain, all wanting large quantities. Ira lied, saying there was enough grain for everyone since the Pope had sent 10,000 sacks, knowing the people were struggling. The buyers didn't believe her lies and knew that if they didn't buy soon, the grain would run out. They began demanding she hurry and sell them the grain. Ira, somewhat nervous, asked them not to push and to form a line. Then, a knight appeared, calmly asking them to settle down. He revealed this was the grain provided by the Pope, the first shipment, and starting tomorrow, more grain would arrive in the city. Ira, visibly happy on the outside but furious within, couldn't take it anymore. Ren was adding more to the situation, and she was deeply worried about what to tell the Pope when he found out. A group of men brought in more grain, and the buyers fell into the trap, thinking they were saved. One merchant who had come from a neighboring city was visibly shocked, as the church had ruined this lucrative business. He had bought grain for 70 silver coins per sack, and transportation cost about 10 more coins, totaling 95 silver coins per sack after accounting for expenses over the past few days. He saw an opportunity to sell and figured it was still a good time to unload his grain since waiting would only lead to losses. The man raised his hand and enthusiastically announced he was selling fresh grain from this year for 95 silver coins per sack, a bargain. Immediately, several buyers showed interest, which enraged the other merchants. If they were going to fall, they'd do it together. All the merchants who had brought grain to sell for 4 gold coins per sack in the city started lowering their prices to compete, with the lowest price dropping to 80 silver coins per sack. A smile appeared on Ren's face as he observed everything from the balcony. Leah, impressed, realized the plan was unfolding exactly as Ren had predicted. Ren explained that this was human nature. If you sell even a second later than others, you'll lose big. Everyone was afraid of selling too late, so they were all desperately trying to sell. Leah, curious, thought this would bring the price of grain back down to 50 silver coins per sack, believing Ren's water project might be completed on time. Ren gently cupped Leah's cheek and, with a confident smile, revealed that once people like Augustus started selling, grain would become the cheapest thing in the city. Leah, visibly distrustful, wasn't so sure if Augustus and his crew would sell their grain at the same price as the outsiders since, after all, they had paid 2 gold coins, or even more, on the market. Not to mention, Augustus and his friends were united after the banquet, sticking together. She asked, won't they turn on each other? With a grin, Ren said Leah was giving them too much credit, as when it came to profits, no one would be willing to back down. He turned around, explaining that the grain prices in the city of Aetherland would no longer be a problem, and it was time to talk to the Holy Maiden about the second part of the deal. News about the foreign grain merchants selling at rock-bottom prices like crazy reached Augustus' ears. The blonde man panicked, revealing that the price of grain had dropped to 75 silver coins per sack. Roland didn't know how this had happened since they controlled all the grain in the city, unsure where the outsiders were getting their supply. The man fell to his knees, swearing he was telling the truth. Augustus, frustrated by the drop in grain prices, sighed, and then a realization hit him. He finally understood that Ren wanted to leave their family completely ruined. The others were somewhat confused. Augustus finally unveiled Ren's plan. First, he spread the news that grain prices in Aetherland were skyrocketing, which surely attracted merchants from nearby towns to bring their grain to the city. Once the merchants flooded the city with grain, Ren used the church's name to crash the prices, causing all the merchants who had arrived to panic, forcing the foreign traders to sell at a loss to avoid losing even more money. Roland's face twisted in anger upon realizing Ren had used such a dirty trick. But Augustus had another plan in mind that could help them turn the situation around, sparking the curiosity of the others, who wanted to know what he was thinking. This grain would only last the city's people a few more months. If they hoarded the grain until the people were desperate, they could sell it at a high price. If they stayed united and refused to sell, there was no doubt they could recover their money. Augustus made one thing clear: if any of them tried to sell their grain, they'd all be doomed. Roland was sweating profusely. He decided to play along and confirmed that Augustus was right, promising to store all his grain once he got home. Deep down, though, he was anxious to sell all his grain immediately because he knew they couldn't afford to be slower than the foreign merchants. The others weren't fools and quickly realized Roland was trying to flee. Now, everyone was on their own. Once they left, one of Augustus' assistants decided to make arrangements and told his people to guard the grain and not sell a single bit. But he was met with a kick from Augustus, who called him an idiot, saying that if one of the 3 imbeciles sold their grain first, they'd lose all their money. Augustus ordered him to sell every last bit of grain without leaving any behind. Back at the church, just as Ren had predicted, the Holy Maiden's people now had more grain than before to survive the winter. Ira was somewhat surprised because it seemed the more grain she sold, the more she had. With a proud smile, Ren explained, "It's because you're selling at the peak and buying at the lowest point. This strategy alone could earn you tens of thousands of gold coins." Suddenly, Lillian burst into the room, announcing that the price of grain had fallen again. Now you could buy 3 sacks for 1 gold coin. At first, Ira doubted Ren's plan, but as he had said, all she had to do was wait a little longer. If she bought now, she could get 10 more sacks of grain. Ren stood up. It was time to talk about the deal they had made. The Holy Maiden grew curious about what kind of deal Ren wanted to make with the elf tribe. Ren extended his hand, saying, "Everything." This left the Holy Maiden somewhat confused, but with a smile, Ren corrected himself and, with a pleasant expression, promised to take care of all aspects of the elves' daily needs, from small things like grain to big things like land. Whatever the elf tribe needed, they could strike a deal. Ira, visibly shocked, refused to accept, as only the queen had the authority to make such a major decision. Ren remained firm and asked her to arrange a meeting with her queen. The Holy Maiden ordered her assistant to deliver the letter to the queen. Ren sat in his chair and began to ponder. After this crisis ended, the nobles of the city wouldn't be able to cause trouble for a while. The Mage Guild was already under his control, and it wouldn't be long before the church followed suit. At this moment, City Lord Eldrick only had the army and taxes as his remaining cards. If they could take control of the army, it wouldn't matter what Eldrick tried to do. He wouldn't be able to escape their grasp. But to put this plan into motion, Ren needed to find a way to infiltrate the military. Noticing he was stressed, Leah gently touched his chest, then began massaging his head, advising him to relax a little. Ren closed his eyes, ready to enjoy the massage. But his massage session was interrupted when a man entered the church, angry at the soldiers who were abusing their power in the name of the Grand Duke. He had come to ask if the gods couldn't strike them down with lightning. But the Holy Maiden responded that it wasn't possible because the gods were merciful. The man was a foreign merchant who was upset not only because he had suffered losses selling grain, but also because he had been robbed by soldiers on his way home. There was no way he could continue doing business. Just as the merchant was about to continue complaining about the Grand Duke, Ren interrupted and, with a calm gaze, asked what the problem was. Ren wasn't well received by the merchant, who demanded to know who he was. Ren simply responded, "I'm someone who wants to do business with you." Lillian, accompanied by a carriage and a mule carrying goods, arrived at the gates of the city walls to leave Aetherland. However, she was stopped by guards who wanted to know what was in the back of the cart. With a friendly demeanor, Lillian introduced herself as a citizen of Aetherland City, explaining that the cart was filled with merchandise she had purchased in the city and was now transporting to the Elven tribe to see if she could make a deal. The guard didn't believe her words and ordered his men to inspect the cart. Following his command, they began checking the merchandise, and to be thorough, they even pierced the jars. Lillian panicked and politely asked the guards not to damage the goods, but now that all the jars were broken, there was no way to transport the merchandise. After the inspection, one of the guards informed their leader that there was nothing unusual about the goods. The leader decided to charge her a toll according to the rules. He explained to Lillian that if she paid the toll, she could leave. But she was somewhat angry because the guards had not only broken her things but now also wanted her to pay a toll. In a commanding tone, the leader told her that if she didn't pay the toll, she could leave and bother someone else. Just before she started arguing, someone inside the carriage asked her to pay the toll, which she did without hesitation. She took out a silver coin, but with a smile, the guard revealed that Master Ren had raised the toll, now set at 5 silver coins. This made Lillian even angrier since all her goods together were only worth 3 silver coins, and yet she had to pay 5 silver coins just for the toll. The guard didn't change his attitude and mentioned that if she didn't pay, she could step aside and stop causing trouble. Lillian, visibly furious, handed over 5 silver coins, knowing these bastards were using Ren's name to cheat people since he never ordered the toll increase. But she was sure that once Ren found out, he would take care of all of them. Once she paid the 5 silver coins, the guard opened the gate and ordered his men to let her leave the city. Once outside the city, she set off toward the Elven tribe. Inside the carriage were Ren and the merchant we saw earlier at the church. Ren, who hadn't revealed his true identity, disrespectfully criticized Master Ren for raising the toll. However, the merchant told him to watch his mouth and not insult the savior of the city. Ren noticed how strange this merchant was, as the soldier had clearly said that Master Ren ordered the toll increase, yet the merchant still blamed the soldiers instead of Master Ren. Realizing Ren was new here, the merchant spoke admiringly about how Master Ren had used a brilliant plan to lower grain prices in Aetherland and help the people. Even though he had lost because of it, it was the first time he had seen a lord so concerned about his people. If he ever got the chance to meet Ren, he swore to serve him wholeheartedly. Ren tried to change his mind by mentioning that he had heard the young son of the Grand Lord not only killed people at a banquet but also forced citizens to dig for some project on his way here. The merchant didn't change his opinion and realized Ren was talking about the Eldwin family. According to him, they deserved it. When Ren asked if he knew them, the merchant thought Ren was truly an outsider since everyone doing business in the city knew the Eldwin family. He revealed that most people thought the Eldwin family made their fortune through casinos, but that wasn't true. With a curious expression, Ren asked how he knew. The merchant, somewhat nervous, looked around before answering that the Eldwin family's real business was human trafficking. This revelation surprised Ren. He was somewhat annoyed because he didn't have enough workers, and the Eldwin family was interfering with his labor force. They needed to find a way to control the border guards first, otherwise, if there was internal chaos, it would be difficult to prevent other countries from taking advantage. His thoughts were interrupted by Lillian, as they had to pay another toll. She got down from the carriage and explained to the guard that they had already paid the toll when leaving Aetherland. With a smile, the guard explained that the toll for Etherlin was for the city, and the toll for the border fortress was for the border fortress. Lillian called the guard a liar, saying they used to only have to pay once. The guard drew his weapon, demanding she pay the toll or leave. Trembling, she demanded to know how much the toll was. With a smug smile, the guard replied, 1 gold coin. Lillian exploded in anger, calling it robbery, but just before she could argue with the guard, Ren again told her to pay the toll, which she reluctantly did. Noticing there were people inside the carriage, the guard ordered them to get out. In an instant, the carriage was surrounded by armed guards. It was a border fortress, and all travelers had to be inspected. Ren stepped out of the carriage with Leah, and with a calm expression, gave the guard permission to inspect. The guard's face turned pale as he recognized one of them. The guard recognized Trist, the merchant traveling with Ren. They couldn't believe this old bastard had dared to come back here. Calmly, Ren asked if Trist and the guard already knew each other. With a face full of fear, Trist revealed that these people used to be bandits in the nearby mountains. Later, the guard collaborated with the Eldwin family and took charge of human trafficking, and the Eldwin family brought him here to work as a guard. The guard was furious because the last time Trist left the city, he hadn't paid enough fees, so because of him, the guard had been severely reprimanded. He slapped Trist and made it clear that if he didn't make up for the money, he wouldn't be able to leave today. Trembling with fear, Trist stood firm, insisting he had given the exact amount of money they had demanded at the time. The guard drew his weapon, explaining that there might not have been a shortage of funds back then, but that didn't mean there wasn't one now. Originally, if it weren't for him sitting inside the carriage, the brothers, would have let him pass after charging a few gold coins. But now that they had seen him, if he didn't have 5 gold coins, he couldn't leave. Ren stepped forward, arguing that this fee was too high. He asked how the tax revenue of Ashland City could be so low. The guard, visibly confused, asked where Ren was from. But then something caught his attention. It was Leah. He couldn't believe such a beautiful girl existed in Ashland City. Trist pulled out a bag of gold and swore to give the 5 gold coins in exchange for them not making things difficult for his business partners. Without wasting more time, the guard grabbed the bag of gold and handed it to his companion. Then, he extended his hand toward Leah and, with a smile, asked the little beauty where she lived. But just then, Ren grabbed his hand. He made it clear that originally, he wanted to see if the guard could be free labor, but now he seemed completely useless. This enraged the guard, who prepared to attack. But Leah intervened and slit the guard's throat in the blink of an eye. The guard fell lifeless, leaving the others in shock. With a calm demeanor, Ren ordered Leah to kill all the remaining guards, then let the escorts they had brought take over guarding the area. Leah nodded. The guards, trembling with fear, began retreating into the fortress, pleading to be saved. But Leah moved like lightning, and just before the guards realized what was happening, she appeared behind them. With a cold gaze, she slit their throats. Ren checked the status window of the soldiers. He was somewhat confused and couldn't believe they were soldiers. The difference in their stats was enormous. A few days ago, when Ren met with his father, he revealed that behind Ashland City lay enemy territory. He warned his son to be careful not to cause a dispute between the two nations. Ren felt fortunate to uncover this major issue, as otherwise, if there were a conflict with the Empire, he would lose. The guards, trembling with fear, collapsed to the ground, and Leah, with a murderous expression, began walking toward them. Then, someone shouted, asking who dared to cause trouble at the border of Ashland City. A hopeful smile appeared on the faces of the soldiers. It was General Caesar. With a calm demeanor, Caesar demanded to know if they were the ones causing trouble at the border. Ren was surprised to see Caesar's stats, which showed a loyalty score of 12 points. This guy had no loyalty, but he was talented. Ren recognized Caesar as a member of the Halker family and asked if he had a brother working in the Prisia territory. Caesar, surprised by Ren, responded with another question. Who are you, and how do you know about my brother? Ren revealed that Prisia Edgar was his older sister, leaving Caesar and the soldiers in shock. Caesar finally realized that Ren was Master Ren, the youngest son of Grand Duke Aldarian. The soldiers panicked, realizing they had offended the wrong person. Caesar's eyes widened as he remembered the letter from his brother. The letter said that Ren would arrive in Ashland City in the near future, so Caesar should pay attention to ensure Ren's safety. But a month ago, Caesar had met with the lord of the city, who offered him a chest full of gold, saying that Ashland City would trust him in the future. Happily, Caesar thanked the lord for his kindness. Mockery from everyone consumed Caesar's mind. Some said the Grand Duke had sent him to this inhospitable place because he didn't take him seriously. He knew his strength deserved a higher status. The tension in the air grew, and Caesar decided not to waste his life in a place like this. He grabbed his weapon and asked how Ren dared to pretend to be Master Ren. He ordered all the soldiers to obey his command. Anyone who killed the fake Master Ren would be generously rewarded. Leah, clearly irritated, thought Caesar was being bold, questioning whether he was planning to rebel. The soldiers advised Lord Caesar not to go through with it, as this was a crime that could lead to the destruction of his family. Caesar stood firm and unsheathed his sword, forcefully driving it into the ground. He revealed that Ren had blackmailed the Grand Duke's son, thus breaking the law. With a furious expression, he explained to his men that the Eldwin family had been annihilated by Ren, and furthermore, the four lords had also been ruined by him. Raising his sword, he declared that this was the westernmost part of the Caradorial Empire, and they possessed the riches they had plundered over the years. To further tempt the soldiers, he said that if they brought Ren Edgar's head to the Orvis Empire in the north, they could claim a reward that would allow them to live happily as minor nobles. Pointing his sword at the soldiers, he gave them two options, life or death, letting them choose for themselves and promising not to force them. The soldiers' faces filled with confusion, unsure whether to obey their general. The cunning Leah quickly realized that Caesar was trying to persuade the soldiers. After some thought, the soldiers believed the general was right. They all drew their weapons, ready to follow Caesar to their deaths. A smug smile appeared on Caesar's face as he asked if Ren had any last words before dying. With his usual calm demeanor, Ren mentioned that if they wanted to return to the right path, he would be willing to give them a chance at redemption. But seeing how things had escalated to this point, it was unfortunate. Coldly, Caesar commanded his men to kill Ren. They all began charging toward him. Leah was slightly bothered by her skirt, so using her knife, she cut it off, then gained momentum and ended the life of one of the soldiers. However, another soldier, seeing an opening, launched a powerful strike. Luckily, Leah noticed in time and, with an acrobatic move, evaded the attack. She then spun her knife and struck the soldier in the chest. But while she was distracted, the soldiers were already closing in on Ren. Leah threw her knife with precision, stabbing it into a soldier's chest and saving Ren. With a smile, Ren decided to give Caesar one last chance, advising him not to be stubborn. But Caesar wasn't willing to back down. He further persuaded his men, promising that whoever ended Ren's life would be rewarded with 1,000 gold coins. Blinded by greed, the soldiers charged at Ren. Meanwhile, another soldier tried to attack Leah by surprise but was met with a kick to the jaw. Leah started breakdancing, knocking out nearby soldiers. Caesar realized she was too strong, so he summoned one of his mages and ordered him to use Ice Arrow. Following the order, the mage conjured a ball of magic and unleashed a rain of ice arrows. Leah deflected several arrows with a well-timed kick, but her eyes widened in fear when she noticed the arrows had frozen her legs, immobilizing her. Now unable to move, Caesar commanded his men to finish off Ren. The soldiers began charging toward them, intent on killing him. Ren pulled out an electric cable and threw a hammer into the air, asking Leah to find a way to jump. Leah grabbed the hammer and shattered the frozen ice around her legs. Then, she summoned a magic circle on the ground and leapt into the air. Ren released the electric cable. It was the perfect moment to test the power of his new invention. The cable hit the ground, and an electric current surged through it, electrocuting the soldiers. The voltage was so high that foam began pouring from their mouths. Ren wasn't electrocuted because he was standing on ceramic tiles. The soldiers were in shock at the sight of thunder magic. Ren was more concerned about not having a video recorder. He could have recorded this scene as a safety warning for future production, reminding workers to handle electricity safely. Enraged to see his soldiers stop, Caesar ordered them to keep charging. One of his men, trembling with fear, admitted this wasn't good. Ren must have used forbidden magic, and anyone who approached him would die. But before he could finish his sentence, Caesar cut off his head, making it clear that anyone who rebelled within the ranks would be executed. With a furious glare, he commanded his men to charge immediately, insisting there was no way a single person could kill them all. Trembling with fear, one of the soldiers approached the corpses, only to realize the thunder magic had stopped working. Confused, Leah asked why these soldiers hadn't been knocked out by his magic. With a serious expression, Ren replied that the reason was simple. The battery he'd brought to test its power had run out of energy. Visibly worried, Leah decided to get Ren out of there immediately, but Ren assured her that Caesar wouldn't escape today. Caesar thought Ren's magic was failing, so he commanded his soldiers to pursue and kill him. But just then, a bolt of lightning descended from the sky, landing right in front of Caesar. His eyes widened in fear as he saw Selena. He didn't know why the Mage Guild was here. Surrounded by lightning, Selena remarked that Caesar was quite bold. The other mages from the guild also arrived, and Selena asked if they had come in time. Ren nodded, as the battery had just run out of power. Selena became excited upon seeing that Ren had used the battery, and wanted to know how effective it was. With a smile, Ren promised to explain it to her calmly after arresting Caesar and the others. Curious about the battery's effects, Selena ordered all the mages to obey her command and assist Ren in destroying the rebels. The mages nodded, then used an intermediate lightning magic called Lightning Strike, causing a rain of thunder to fall upon the soldiers. The soldiers, now terrified, began to flee, begging for forgiveness and swearing never to do it again. Caesar, maintaining his furious expression, swore to take Ren down with him, even if it meant dying. He moved quickly, dodging the rain of thunder, and then leaped, ready to finish Ren once and for all. He used his best skill, collapsing Mountain Slash, but to his surprise, Leah blocked it, narrowly saving Ren. Leah's eyes were glowing with hatred. Caesar cursed under his breath, thinking that if it weren't for her interference, Ren would already be dead. Leah prepared to attack with a kick, and by the time Caesar realized it, he was met with a powerful kick to the face. His body flew backward and slammed into the wooden wall. When the cloud of dust cleared, Caesar had already lost consciousness. With a hateful demeanor, Leah called him trash. A few hours later, while Ren was reading what appeared to be reports, Caesar, who was tied to a pillar, woke up. With a calm demeanor, Ren made it clear that he knew Caesar, as a border guard, had been embezzling money for several years. But he wanted to know when Caesar had started working with Eldrick. Caesar's eyes widened in shock, and he asked how Ren knew this. With a confident smile, Ren said there was no need to be so surprised. Ren already knew Eldrick would betray them. He had simply been waiting for an opportunity, a chance to take down Eldrick in one fell swoop. Placing his hand on the book, Ren was confident that thanks to Caesar, he could finally bring this to an end. With a smug expression, Caesar questioned whether Ren really thought he could do anything to Lord Eldrick with mere evidence of corruption. Ren corrected Caesar, explaining that these accounts posed no real threat to Eldrick. Through them, Ren only had approximate figures of the annual business tax revenue of Ashland City. He revealed that this information would serve as a valuable reference for his future transformation of the city. Caesar burst into laughter, believing that transforming Ashland City was a dream since Lord Eldrick controlled the lifeline of all the nobles in the city. No one would listen to Ren. Ren handed the report to Leah and decided to say something to Caesar Halker. He stood up and, with an oppressive gaze, revealed that living people are called nobles, and dead people are called corpses. Caesar's face filled with fear as he realized Ren was planning to create a bloodbath among the nobility in the city. Holding up two fingers and smiling, Ren explained that the nobles had two options. The first, follow the same path as Caesar toward death, or the second, obediently listen to him and work for him in the future. Ren wanted to know which option Caesar thought the nobles would choose. A while later, Ren was walking along the city walls, contemplating their beauty. Calculating the time, it should be nearly autumn, and Grand Duke Soren would definitely send troops this year. Ren knew the city walls needed to be prepared quickly, otherwise, they wouldn't be able to stop the enemy in case of war. He spread the map of the empire on the table. To the west lay the Elven territory, which belonged to Miss Saint and the others. As long as negotiations succeeded, there would be no war. There was still no need to worry about the territory of the second sister to the east. The most dangerous threat for now was Grand Duke Soren in the north. Leah, visibly worried, interrupted his thoughts, revealing that the money extorted from the entire border fortress had been counted. About 350,000 gold coins. A smile appeared on Ren's face as he decided to take the guards to manage the defense here first. He decided to give each person 100 gold coins and put the rest in the carriage to take back to Ashland City. Ren and Leah arrived where Selena was holding an electric cable. With a kind smile, Ren greeted her and thanked her and the Mage Guild for their hard work. With a grateful smile, Selena responded that there was no need to thank her. She handed him the electric cable, wanting to know in detail the principle behind the battery discharge. She was curious to see how someone without magical power could use it. Ren decided to explain it to her step by step on the way back. Selena felt thrilled. But just then, Malcolm appeared with terrible news, informing President Selena that something bad had happened. Selena, visibly annoyed, responded that she was fine and demanded to know what was going on. With a face full of fear, Malcolm revealed that City Lord Eldrick had rebelled and taken control of the city. This shocked Selena, but Ren smirked, realizing that Eldrick couldn't contain himself any longer. Selena, somewhat worried, asked what to do now. Since suppressing the border guards had required bringing all the mages from the guild, there was no one left in the city to act as their inside agent at the moment. With his usual calm demeanor, Ren revealed that the moment Eldrick took control of the city to rebel, he had already lost. A few hours later, Ren arrived at the entrance of the city on horseback, accompanied by an army of soldiers, Leah, and Selena. He was somewhat curious, wondering if Eldrick had been forced into a difficult situation because of him. Eldrick, who was standing on the city walls, couldn't help but smile and mockingly asked Ren what brought him to the city of Ashland. With a serious gaze, Ren asked why Eldrick had betrayed his father. Eldrick became furious and explained that Ren's father had exiled him to this god-forsaken place. At one time, Ren's father and Eldrick had joined forces to build the empire. But after Ren's father became the great leader, not only did he fail to give Eldrick the respect he deserved, but he also banished him and his family to these remote lands. Eldrick wrote to him several times, hoping to be relocated to a more prosperous region, but all his letters were ignored. Pointing at Ren, Eldrick made it clear that all of this was Ren's father's fault. He was the one who should be blamed for his lack of gratitude and justice. Several nobles appeared beside Eldrick, and with an evil smile, he revealed that they too had fought alongside Ren's father for the empire. But they never received what they deserved. They weren't rebelling, they wanted to reclaim what they had earned through their efforts. Ren felt somewhat disappointed. He had thought Eldrick might have a noble reason to justify his actions, but in the end, it all boiled down to a boring conflict of interests. With a confident smile, Ren gave them a chance. Anyone who wished to save their life should surrender and leave the city. Otherwise, if they waited until he took control of the city in 3 days, he would show no mercy. The nobles couldn't help but burst into laughter, thinking Ren was a fool. Eldrick joined in, questioning if Ren had gone mad with fear. One of the nobles remarked that Ren was nothing but a talkative coward who didn't know how to act. Eldrick's eyes gleamed with confidence. Now that Ren was so sure he could take the city in 3 days, Eldrick suggested making a bet. With his usual calm demeanor, Ren asked what kind of bet. Eldrick explained that if Ren failed to breach the city walls in 3 days, he would have to surrender and be at Eldrick's mercy. Ren asked what would happen if he succeeded in breaking through the walls. Eldrick replied that in that case, he would be at Ren's mercy. With an evil grin, Eldrick mocked Ren, questioning whether he had the courage to accept the bet. Just as Ren was about to make a decision, Selena intervened and mentioned that there was no need to listen to Eldrick since they could take their time to attack. Leia informed Ren that she had already reported Eldrick's betrayal to the Grand Duke, so they only needed to wait for the Grand Duke's troops to arrive and crush him. She advised that there was no need to make such a reckless bet. Seeing Ren's silence, Eldrick mocked him, asking if he was afraid. The other nobles joined in, convinced that Ren was scared since just moments ago he had been talking about taking the city in 3 days, and now he was hiding like a turtle. With a grin, Ren accepted the bet and decided to grant Eldrick's wish by humiliating him. Mockingly, he said he hoped Eldrick would keep his word in 3 days. Eldrick, excited, mentioned that everyone present was a witness to the bet and swore to honor his word. With an evil smile, Eldrick revealed that the army of the Orvis Empire had already received news of his rebellion, and their massive forces would arrive at the fortress in about 10 days. He couldn't help but smirk, hoping Ren wouldn't be captured by the time the enemy arrived. A few hours later, Ren's army set up camp. Inside one of the military tents were Ren and the others. Selena informed him that although the walls of Ashland appeared decrepit, with their current forces, it would be difficult to breach them. One of the soldiers suggested taking Ren and escaping south, as when the Grand Duke's army arrived, they would seize the city of Ashland. With a thoughtful gaze, Ren asked them not to worry, as the city walls would fall in 3 days. Using a sand model, he mentioned that what worried him now was the army of the Orvis Empire. He turned to Leia and asked if she had gathered enough firewood and hay. She nodded with a smile and mentioned that everything was ready, and as Ren had requested, they had also found a nearby lake. Ren asked Selena to ensure the mages used ice magic on the lake to lower the water temperature, ideally close to 0 degrees. Selena, visibly confused, asked if Ren really believed these things would be able to break the city walls. With a confident gaze, Ren told her not to worry, as the walls of Ashland would not hold for more than 3 days. The next day, Ren returned to the city walls with his army, and clenching his fist, he gave the order to attack. The soldiers, carrying shields and firewood, began charging toward the walls. A rain of arrows fell upon them, but thanks to their shields, they blocked the attacks. Eldrick's eyes widened in confusion as he watched the soldiers. He couldn't understand why they weren't carrying siege weapons or why they were hauling firewood. To everyone's surprise, the soldiers threw the firewood near the walls and retreated, leaving everyone confused. Eldrick, somewhat curious, asked one of the archers what was happening and if they had ever seen anything like this while defending the city. The archer was equally confused. They had never seen anything like it before, so he thought Ren might be planning to burn the walls. Eldrick punched the archer in the cheek, saying it made no sense to burn stones. The archer apologized, as he couldn't think of anything else. Just as Eldrick was about to continue arguing with the archer, another man revealed that Ren's army was indeed trying to burn the walls. The soldiers set the firewood ablaze and ran off, leaving Eldrick confused as he watched them attempt to burn stone walls. He couldn't help but smile, thinking Ren was a fool. One of the archers, showing concern, asked if they should order the mages to extinguish the fire or use arrows to kill the soldiers transporting the firewood. Eldrick said there was no need, as the mages they had brought from the Orvis Empire should only act at a crucial moment. He decided to do nothing, as they couldn't waste their magic on something like this, nor could they waste arrows to damage their firewood. He was confident that in 3 days, he would mock Ren from atop the walls. The flames grew more intense, heating the wall. A few days later, in the residence of the city's lord, while Eldrick was enjoying the company of a beautiful woman, one of his men appeared and informed him that Ren's soldiers had stopped setting fire to the walls. Eldrick stood up and couldn't help but smile, thinking Ren had burned all the firewood he had stored for the winter. Feeling confident, he asked the other nobles to join him in witnessing Ren's surrender. Today was the final day of the bet between Eldrick and Ren, and everyone was certain Eldrick would win, especially now that the walls were so hot it was difficult to even approach them, let alone besiege them. Eldrick climbed to the top of the walls, where Ren and his army were waiting. He couldn't resist mocking Ren, asking if he planned to extinguish the fire and obediently surrender. With a serious gaze, Ren gave Eldrick and the nobles one last chance, suggesting they surrender now or face death later. Eldrick became excited, thinking Ren had lost his mind. He asked why Ren thought they would surrender, as if he had forgotten about the bet from 3 days ago, reminding him that today was the final day. The firewood was still burning, and Eldrick mentioned that if Ren didn't conquer Ashland before sunset, he would have to surrender without complaint, or else break his promise in front of both armies. The nobles mocked Ren, advising him to focus on how to take the city instead of breaking the deal. Ren couldn't help but sigh at their stubbornness and gave Selena the order to attack. Selena appeared in the sky, extended her hand, and began gathering electrical energy. Seeing this, Eldrick called his mages and ordered them to prepare to defend. Selena gathered a massive amount of electrical energy in her hand and, with a smile, unleashed a powerful bolt of lightning toward them. Fortunately, the mages reacted in time and summoned a magical barrier, but to everyone's surprise, the lightning struck the wall, leaving Eldrick and the mages somewhat confused. Eldrick burst into laughter, seeing that Selena's attack had failed. He mocked her, saying the famous Selena of the Mage Association wasn't as great as everyone claimed. But then his eyes filled with surprise as suddenly it began to rain. Seizing the opportunity, Ren ordered his army to attack. The soldiers, carrying buckets of ice-cold water, charged toward the wall. Selena, somewhat exhausted, descended to the ground, and Ren and Leah helped her, expressing their gratitude. Ren couldn't believe that Selena had actually managed to trigger a change in the weather. If there were droughts in the future, he could ask for her help. Selena, looking concerned, asked if Ren's plan would really work. Taking her hand, Ren reassured her, explaining that the moment the icy water touched the wall, the entire city of Ashland would cease to exist. Leah interrupted their conversation and urged them to look. Ren's soldiers poured the icy water onto the wall. At first, nothing happened, but then the stones began to crack. Seeing this, Eldrick couldn't help but panic. He didn't know what was happening or why the wall was making such a noise, realizing this wasn't something even a spell of immense power could achieve. Gradually, the stones of the wall began to crumble, sending Eldrick and the nobles into a frenzy. Eldrick's eyes filled with fear as the wall shattered into pieces, creating a thick cloud of smoke. Now that the wall had collapsed, Ren ordered his army to advance, capturing anyone who surrendered without resistance and killing those who resisted and chose to fight. Following his orders, the soldiers entered the city. Selena was astonished to see the wall truly reduced to rubble. This level of destruction was something not even she could achieve with a full power strike. She had no idea how Ren had accomplished this feat. Ren interrupted her thoughts, advising that it was time to head home. The wall was now nothing more than debris, and from the ruins, someone crawled out. It was Eldrick. He was injured and furious, unable to believe Ren possessed such skill. He had underestimated him far too much and thought about escaping as soon as possible, hoping to hold out until the Orvis Empire's troops arrived from the north to survive. But just then, the very nobles who had been on his side appeared before him, filled with rage, leaving Eldrick somewhat confused. The nobles asked where Eldrick planned to flee. They didn't want to die yet, so they begged Eldrick to forgive them.